Welcome to Cleared for TakeOff, brought to you by Viera Tech, your go-to podcast for aviation news, special topics, and beyond. Let's soar into the stories shaping the skies. Strap in as Brian and Jen provide an interesting take on the Airbus A350.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going on a deep dive. We're going to be talking about the Airbus A350.
It's a fascinating aircraft.
Yeah, and it's been making some serious waves in the aviation world. So in this deep dive, we're going to try to figure out what makes the A350 so special, what sets it apart.
Well, I think one of the things that makes the A350 stand out is its use of advanced materials. It's the first Airbus aircraft to be primarily constructed from carbon fiber reinforced polymer.
CFRP.
Yeah, exactly.
CFRP.
Okay, so that sounds like some pretty high-tech stuff. What's the big deal about CFRP? Why is everyone so excited about it?
Well, it's incredibly strong and lightweight, and that means the A350 is much lighter than older aircraft models.
So it's like the difference between like a clunky old car and a sleek sports car?
Kind of, yeah. And this translates to some pretty significant benefits for airlines.
Like what?
Well, the big one is fuel efficiency.
Ah, so it's good for the environment, too.
Exactly. And that's good for the airline's bottom line, too, of course, since fuel is such a major expense. Now, I know Boeing's 787 Dreamliner also uses composite materials. Is this where the rivalry between these two giants really heats up?
Oh, absolutely. The A350 and 787 are definitely going head-to-head in the long-range aircraft market.
It's like Coke versus Pepsi, but for airplanes.
Exactly. But before we get into that showdown, I think it's worth mentioning that the A350 actually comes in several different versions or variants.
Oh, so it's not just one size fits all.
Right. There's the A350-900, which is kind of the workhorse of the family.
Okay.
Then there's the A350-1000, which is a stretched version with even more seating capacity.
Got it.
And then there's the A350-900 ULR, which stands for Ultra Long Range.
ULR. I like that. So what makes the ULR so special?
Well, as you might guess, it can fly incredibly long distances without refueling. In fact, it can fly nonstop from Singapore to New York.
Wow, that's like, what, almost 18 hours in the air?
Yep.
So how does the A350 stack up against its Boeing rival, the 787, in terms of, size and range?
Well, we've got a handy comparison table here from our sources that breaks it down pretty well.
Okay, let's see what we've got.
So if we look at the A350-900 and the 787-9, which are the most direct competitors, the A350 can typically accommodate between 315 and 440 passengers.
Okay.
The 787-9 seats a bit fewer, between 290 and 406.
So round one goes to the A350 on size. What about range?
Well, the A350-900 has a range of 8,700 nautical miles.
Impressive.
The 787-9 comes in at 7,635 nautical miles.
So if you're looking to fly nonstop from, say, London to Sydney, the A350 seems like the way to go.
It certainly has the legs for it, but, the 787-9 does have some advantages of its own.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, it's actually slightly more fuel efficient per passenger.
Interesting.
And it also has a lower list price.
So it really depends on the airline's specific needs, right?
Exactly. But I think it's fair to say that both aircraft are pretty impressive feats of engineering.
I've read that Air India, Delta, and EVA Air have all placed big orders for A350s recently. Is that a sign that the A350 is gaining an edge?
It's hard to say for sure, but it's certainly possible. The A350 is a very attractive option for airlines, especially with the delays that the 77X program has been facing.
The 777X, that's Boeing's answer to the A350, right?
But, the A350 hasn't had entirely smooth sailing either. It's run into a few bumps along the way.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about some of the issues, like that whole paint degradation problem, right? What happened there?
Well, basically, there were some issues with the paint on certain A350s. It started to peel and crack, and it exposed the surface underneath.
And that was a problem because...
Well, while Airbus maintained it was just a cosmetic issue and didn't affect the structural integrity of the plane, it was still a major headache for them.
I can imagine. And I think it spooked some airlines too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then there were reports of similar paint issues on A350s operated by other airlines like Finnair, Lufthansa, and Singapore Airlines.
So it wasn't just a one-off thing.
Right. And this whole thing definitely put some pressure on Airbus to find a permanent solution.
Yeah, I bet it did.
And as if that wasn't enough, Airbus also had to deal with supply chain issues, which caused some delays in A350 deliveries.
Delays are never good news, especially in the airline industry.
No, they're not. And then there was that issue with the Rolls-Royce Trent XWB engine.
The engine. Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. Cathay Pacific actually had to ground their entire A350 fleet because of a problem with a fuel nozzle inside the XWB-97 engine.
That's a pretty big deal. So what happened? Did they fix it?
Well, yeah, the issue was eventually resolved, but it definitely raised some concerns about the engine's reliability.
So it seems like even a technological marvel like the A350 isn't immune to setbacks.
That's true, but it's still a remarkable aircraft with a lot to offer.
Well, you mentioned fuel efficiency earlier. Can you talk a little bit more about why that's so important for airlines?
Sure. Fuel is one of the biggest operating expenses for airlines, so any reduction in fuel burn can significantly impact their bottom line.
I see.
And the A350 really delivers in that regard. It burns 25% less fuel per seat than older aircraft.
25%. That's huge.
It is. It's a real game changer for the industry.
And I bet passengers appreciate it too. Who wants to be stuck on a cramped, uncomfortable plane for hours on end?
Right. Passenger comfort is a big priority for airlines these days, and the A350 is designed with that in mind.
Oh, yeah. What are some of the things that make it so comfortable?
Well, for starters, it has wider seats and higher ceilings than older aircraft.
That makes a difference.
Oh, yeah. And it also has those really big windows, which let in a lot of natural light.
I love planes with big windows. It makes such a difference, especially on long flights.
And then there's the quiet cabin.
A quiet cabin.
Yeah, the A350 is designed to be much quieter than older aircraft, which makes it much more relaxing to fly in.
Oh, I can imagine. It's like a flying oasis.
Pretty much. And it's good for the environment, too. The A350 has lower CO2 emissions than older aircraft.
So it's a win-win all around.
Absolutely. And it's also compatible with sustainable aviation fuels, or SF, which are becoming increasingly important.
SF. So it's not just about passenger comfort and profits. It's also about making air travel more sustainable.
Exactly. And we haven't even talked about all the other perks, like the large cargo capacity, the advanced technology, and the improved reliability.
So it sounds like the A350 is really raising the bar for the aviation industry.
It really is.
So, with all of that in mind, what does the future hold for the A350?
Well, the future looks pretty bright, I'd say. The A350 has a strong order book, and Airbus is planning to increase production to meet the growing demand.
That's a good sign.
Oh, yeah. And Airbus is always innovating. They're currently working on a performance improvement package, or PIP.
PIP. What's that?
It's a package of upgrades that will make the A350 even more fuel efficient.
Even more fuel efficient. That's amazing.
It is. And they're also exploring hybrid laminar flow control, or HLFC.
HLFC, that sounds pretty high-tech. What is that exactly?
Well, HLFC is a technology that reduces drag on the wings, which can lead to even more fuel savings and reduced emissions.
Wow. So they're really pulling out all the stops.
Yeah. And there's even talk of a new engine option, or NEO, down the road.
NEO, okay. What would that do?
Well, the NEO could potentially revolutionize the A350's performance and sustainability.
That's exciting. And we're already seeing airlines like Emirates planning cabin upgrades for their A350s with a focus on things like expanding premium economy seating.
Exactly. So I think it's safe to say that the A350 is here to stay, and it's going to continue to shape the future of aviation.
Well, with United Airlines placing a big order for A350-900s, do you think other airlines might follow suit? Could this be a tipping point for the A350?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm definitely looking forward to that. We've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, we have. It's been a fascinating discussion so far.
Absolutely. And it's amazing to see how much innovation is happening in the aviation industry.
It really is an exciting time to be following this field.
Well, on that note, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to continue our deep dive into the world of the Airbus A350. You know, it's funny, we've been talking a lot about the A350 from a technical perspective.
Yeah, about the nuts and bolts.
Exactly. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's not just about specs and figures.
Right, it's about the people.
Yeah. The human element of aviation, I think that's just as fascinating as the tech side.
Okay, so let's dive into that. Where do we even start?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things about the A350 is that it's opened up a whole new world of ultra long haul travel. You know, those crazy long flights.
Yeah, like those 18-hour flights we talked about.
Exactly. Imagine flying from Singapore to New York without a single stop. I mean, that's a game changer.
It is a game changer, especially for people who travel a lot for work or, just want to get to their destination as quickly as possible.
Right. And for those who might get a little restless on those long flights, the A350 is designed to make the experience much more enjoyable.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, it has spacious cabins, really comfortable seats, and even an advanced air filtration system.
Their filtration system.
Yeah. It keeps the air fresh and clean, so you don't feel so stuffy and gross after a long flight.
So it's like a flying spa.
Kind of. But it's not just about physical comfort. The A350 also has these huge windows.
I do love a good window seat.
Right. And the cabin is super quiet, so you can actually relax and maybe even get some sleep.
Sleep on a plane. Now you're really talking.
Right. And let's not forget about the crew.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones who make those long-haul flights possible.
True. They're the unsung heroes.
Right. And the A350 has actually made their jobs a lot easier and more efficient.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, for pilots, it has this fly-by-wire system, which gives them greater control over the aircraft. And the avionics are super advanced.
Avionics.
Yeah, basically all the electronic systems on board. So it just reduces their workload and makes them more aware of what's going on around them.
Got it. Makes sense. And what about the flight attendants?
Well, the A350 has really well-designed galleys and work areas, so it's easier for them to move around and serve passengers.
Oh, so it's better for everyone on board.
Exactly. And that quiet cabin. Well, that's a big benefit for the crew, too. You know, it makes for a much less stressful work environment.
I bet. Now let's zoom out a bit and think about the A350's impact on the aviation industry as a whole. It's been a pretty big deal, hasn't it?
Oh, it has. I mean, the A350 has really pushed the boundaries of what's possible in aviation.
Yeah, it's like a technological leap forward.
Exactly. And it's really driven innovation within the industry. You know, other manufacturers are having to step up their game to compete.
It's like an arms race, but for airplanes.
Kind of. And this competition ultimately benefits everyone. You know, it leads to better aircraft, more efficient aircraft, safer aircraft.
Right. And what about the impact on global connectivity?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the A350's range has made it possible to fly to places that were previously inaccessible.
Exactly. It's shrunk the world in a way. And that has all sorts of implications, you know, for business, for tourism, for cultural exchange.
Right. It's bringing people and cultures closer together.
Yeah. And we can't forget about the environmental benefits. We talked about fuel efficiency. But, you know, the A350 is also compatible with sustainable aviation fuels.
Right, SAF. Those are a big deal.
They are. It's a step towards a more sustainable future for aviation.
Now, speaking of sustainability, what about the economic impact? Has the A350 been good for airlines' bottom lines?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The A350's fuel efficiency means lower operating costs. So airlines can offer more competitive fares and expand their route networks.
So everyone wins.
Pretty much. And, you know, the A350 program itself has created tons of jobs worldwide.
Oh, wow. So it's good for the economy, too.
Exactly. So, yeah, the A350 has had a really positive impact all around.
Now, I'm curious about the future. What innovations can we expect to see down the road?
Well, we talked about those upgrades that Airbus is working on, you know,
Yeah.
the performance improvement package and the hybrid laminar flow control.
Right. Those sound really promising.
They are. And then
Mhm.
there's that new engine option that we mentioned.
The NEO. Yeah.
Uh,
What's the latest on that?
It's still early days, but the NEO has the potential to significantly reduce fuel burn and emissions.
Wow. So even more sustainable.
Exactly. And with technology constantly evolving, I think we can expect to see even more innovation in the years to come.
I'm picturing like lie-flat seats in every class, personalized entertainment systems, maybe even virtual reality windows.
Maybe. Who knows? The possibilities are pretty much endless.
That's what's so cool about this.
Yeah.
You know, the future of aviation is full of potential.
Yeah, and the A350 is definitely leading the way.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the A350.
We have. We've talked about its technical marvels, its impact on the industry, its role in connecting the world.
But as with any journey, there's always more to explore.
That's right. The A350 is just one piece of this big, complex puzzle that is the aviation industry.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think the beauty of it is that the future's unwritten. You know, there's so much more to discover.
And that's what makes it so exciting. You know, as we wrap up our deep dive into the A350, I keep thinking about how this plane is more than just a piece of technology.
It is, right. It's really a testament to human ingenuity. You know, our drive to push the limits of what's possible.
Yeah, and not just in terms of engineering, but also in terms of connecting the world and making travel more sustainable.
Exactly. It's like this aircraft represents a whole set of values, you know, efficiency, sustainability, global connectivity.
And it's a reminder that technology can be a force for good.
Absolutely. But, you know, it's important to remember that the A350 isn't just about the plane itself.
Right, it's about the people.
Exactly. The people who design it, the people who build it, the people who fly it, and the people who fly on it.
It's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, and every flight is a story, you know, a story of human connection and adventure.
I've always been fascinated by the stories of pilots, you know. What's it like to be at the controls of a plane like the A350? to be responsible for hundreds of lives soaring through the sky.
It's an incredible experience. It requires a lot of skill and focus, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
And what about the passengers? What are their stories? Why are they flying? What are their hopes and dreams?
Every passenger has a reason for being on that plane. They might be traveling for work or to see family or to explore a new part of the world.
It's amazing to think about all the different stories that are unfolding on a single flight.
It is. It's like this plane is a microcosm of the world, bringing people together from all walks of life.
And the A350 is making those connections possible in a way that was never before imagined. With its long range and its comfort and its efficiency.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable.
So as we look to the future of the A350, what can we expect to see? What new innovations are on the horizon?
Well, who knows for sure, but I think we can expect to see even more focus on sustainability, with things like new engine technologies and the use of sustainable aviation fuels.
And what about the passenger experience? What changes can we expect to see there?
Well, I think airlines are going to continue to push the boundaries of luxury and comfort, with things like lie-flat seats in every class, personalized entertainment systems, and maybe even virtual reality windows.
Virtual reality windows. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Imagine being able to look out your window and see any destination in the world.
That's the future of aviation right there.
It is, and the A350 is at the forefront of it all.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive into the world of the Airbus A350. It's been a fascinating journey.
It has. And it's clear that the A350 is more than just an airplane. It's a symbol of human ingenuity and our desire to connect with the world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the A350.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, happy flying.